For decades, we've been taught that success means climbing the corporate ladder, working long hours and sacrificing time now so that someday, hopefully by the time we retire at 65, we can finally enjoy life. We're told to work harder, put in more hours and grind away so that one day we'll have financial security and freedom. But what if that entire system is flawed? But what if everything we've been told about work is wrong? What if you could work from anywhere and work less, not more? What if instead of waiting decades to live the life we want, we could do it right now? In 2007, Tim Ferriss released The 4-Hour Work Week, a book that completely challenged traditional ideas about work, productivity and wealth. It introduced the concept of life design, the idea that you don't have to wait until retirement to live the life you want. Instead, you can reverse engineer your ideal life and design a system that allows you to live it now, not in 30 or 40 years. The book became a massive success, but it was also controversial. Some people called Ferriss a genius, while others dismissed the book as unrealistic, saying that a 4-hour work week was a fantasy. And that's why this book is so important to discuss. Whether you love it or hate it, it forces us to question the traditional model of work and consider if there's a better way to structure our time, income and life. So today, we're going to break it down, explore its most important ideas, and see what we can actually apply to our own lives. Welcome to the Success Bureau, where we break down the greatest books in history, from ancient wisdom to modern productivity, extracting their most powerful ideas and applying them to real life. Whether it's philosophy, psychology, business, or personal growth, we explore timeless lessons that can help us think better, live better, and make better decisions. And today, we're diving into one of the most revolutionary business books ever written, The 4-Hour Work Week by Tim Ferriss. This was one of the books I read before quitting my job. It can change how you think about work, freedom, and financial independence. And whether you agree with Ferriss or not, his ideas will challenge the way you think about your career and time, and what's actually possible. So, let's break it down. The first thing Ferriss does in this book is question the very foundation of how we think about work and money. He asks a simple but powerful question. Are you working to live or living to work? Most people trade their time for money. They wake up every morning, go to work, sit in an office, and put in their hours, hoping that eventually they'll have saved enough money to enjoy their life. But Ferriss argues that instead of working endlessly for money, we should first design our ideal lifestyle, figure out what we actually want our lives to look like, and then create a way to fund it without having to sell all of our time. For most people, wealth is about accumulating as much money as possible, thinking that one day, when they have enough, they'll finally be free. But Ferriss introduces a different way of thinking about wealth, one that isn't based on the size of your bank account, but on the freedom that you have to do what you want. Ferriss also introduces the idea of the new rich versus the old rich. The old rich follow the traditional path, work hard for 40 years, accumulate millions, then retire. The new rich, on the other hand, focus on building systems that generate income without requiring them to trade their time for money. Instead of waiting decades to enjoy life, they create ways to live well now, traveling, pursuing their passions, and having more time freedom. His ideas are surprisingly aligned with what Henry David Thoreau wrote over 100 years earlier in Walden. The price of anything is the amount of life you exchange for it. Thoreau spent 2 years living simply in a cabin in the woods, proving that most of what we consider necessary work is actually a choice. The key to achieving this ideal lifestyle is Ferriss's DEAL framework: definition, elimination, automation, and liberation. The first step in escaping the 9-to-5 trap is redefining success. Most people assume they need millions of dollars to have financial freedom. But when you actually break it down, many dreams cost far less than people think. Ferriss suggests creating a dreamline, a detailed breakdown of what your ideal lifestyle would look like. What do you really want? Where would you live? What would you do? How much would it actually cost? Most people never ask themselves these questions. They assume they have to work until they're old just to afford life. But Ferriss shows that if you apply concepts like geo-arbitrage, living in a low-cost country while earning a high-income currency, you can have a much higher quality of life for a fraction of what you'd spend in places like the US or the UK, for example. A person earning $3,000 a month in New York might struggle to afford rent, but someone earning that same amount while living in Thailand could live in luxury, working remotely, and having far more freedom. This is a radical shift in thinking. Instead of working harder to earn more, Ferriss suggests redesigning your lifestyle so that you need less money while living better. I've applied this principle in my own life. Although I didn't move to another country, I created a business that allows me to work remotely from anywhere, and that freedom is awesome. If you're thinking of starting your own business, I think this should be high on your priority list. One of the biggest traps people fall into is mistaking being busy for being productive. Ferriss argues that most people spend the majority of their time doing things that don't actually matter. Endless emails, unnecessary meetings, busy work that makes them feel productive but doesn't actually move them forward. He introduces the 80-20 rule, also known as the Pareto principle, which states that 80% of results come from just 20% of efforts. Instead of trying to do everything, the key is to identify the 20% of work that actually produces the majority of your results and eliminate or delegate the rest. Ferriss suggests techniques like only checking emails once a day, batch processing tasks, and saying no to time-wasting activities. The goal is to remove all unnecessary distractions so that you can accomplish more in less time. Imagine cutting your work week from 40 hours to 10, just by eliminating everything that isn't essential. That's the power of elimination. If elimination helps you cut out unnecessary tasks, automation helps you make money without constantly working. Ferriss argues that the key to escaping the time for money trap is to create systems that generate income with minimal effort. This could mean outsourcing tasks to virtual assistants, setting up a business that runs on autopilot, or leveraging technology to streamline processes. Instead of being the worker in a business, Ferriss suggests becoming the architect of a system that works for you. Many people believe that building passive income is difficult, but Ferriss gives countless examples of people who started small and created businesses that run with little to no direct involvement. He explains how to set up online businesses, automate customer service, and use freelancers to handle most of the work, so that you can focus on enjoying your life instead of being stuck in the daily grind. The legendary investor Warren Buffett put it best: if you don't find a way to make money while you sleep, you will work until you die. The final step is liberation, breaking free from location dependency and structuring your life so that work doesn't trap you in one place. Ferriss was one of the first major advocates for remote work, long before it became mainstream. The truth is, you don't always need to quit to gain freedom. You just need to negotiate remote work strategically. Most people assume their boss will say no to remote work, but the real reason most requests get rejected is that employees don't frame the request properly. They make it about what they want instead of what benefits the company. Ferriss suggests a gradual approach to making remote work permanent. Step 1. Prove remote work increases productivity. Most managers fear remote work because they assume people will slack off. The easiest way to counter this? Prove that working remotely makes you more productive. Instead of asking for permission right away, start by working remotely 1 day a week without telling anyone. Focus on tasks that require deep work. No distractions, no meetings, so that you have a clear before and after comparison. Then track your results. If you're in sales, that might mean closing more deals. If you're in marketing, it could be writing better content in less time. The key is to show hard data that remote work makes you more valuable, not less. Step 2. Make a trial request. Once you've gathered data that proves you're more productive outside the office, it's time to strategically approach your boss. Instead of asking outright, position it as an experiment. Say something like, "I've noticed I get a lot more done when I work remotely. Fewer distractions, better focus. Could we test a 2-week period where I work from home 2 days a week? If it doesn't improve results, I'll come back full time." By framing it as a low-risk experiment, your boss is more likely to say yes. And once they see that your work quality improves, you'll have leverage to expand it further. Step 3. Gradually expand your remote time. After a successful trial period, start expanding your remote work schedule. If 2 days a week worked, ask for 3 or 4. Eventually transition into full-time remote work by showing that the company is getting better results, not worse. Many employees who follow this process never return to the office full-time again. And once you're working remotely, you're free to work from anywhere. which means you can start designing your life, not just your work. But what if your boss isn't open to remote work? What if your boss requires you to be in a specific location? That's where setting up your own business comes in. If negotiating remote work isn't an option, Ferriss suggests building a business that allows you to work from anywhere. The key is choosing a business model that isn't tied to a physical location. Something that can operate on autopilot while you focus on living. Ferriss warns against brick-and-mortar businesses because they tie you to a location, which defeats the purpose of location freedom. Instead, he recommends businesses that run online, like selling digital products, courses, and online memberships, running dropshipping or e-commerce, where third-party suppliers handle inventory and shipping so you don't have to. Affiliate marketing, where you earn passive income from recommending products instead of managing them. Freelancing or consulting online, but only if it can be automated or outsourced. A key lesson from Ferriss is that you don't want to be the bottleneck in your own business. If the business stops making money when you stop working, you haven't really escaped the 9 to 5. You've just built a different type of job. Once you have a business idea, the next step is automating and outsourcing as much as possible. Ferriss emphasizes eliminating tasks you don't need to do personally. Hire virtual assistants to handle emails, scheduling, and repetitive tasks. Use automated software to process orders, send invoices, and deliver digital products. Set up systems where the business runs with minimal input from you. The difference between a successful entrepreneur and someone who just owns a business is whether they can step away without everything falling apart. Once you've automated your income, you're truly free. You can work from anywhere, whether that's a cafe in Paris, a beach in Bali, or 35,000 feet in the air. One of the most powerful exercises Ferriss teaches isn't goal setting, it's fear setting. Most people never take action, not because they lack resources, but because they're afraid of failure. Ferriss suggests an exercise where you list the worst case scenario in detail. What would actually happen if you quit your job? What's the absolute worst outcome? Could you recover? Could you get another job if needed? In most cases, when people write out their fears, they realise that the worst case scenario isn't as catastrophic as they thought. Most often than not, they could recover, pivot, or find another way forward. Instead of making decisions based on fear, this method helps people see reality more clearly. Seneca had a similar practice called premeditatio malorum, where he would visualise everything that could go wrong in order to prepare his mind for challenges. His advice? We suffer more in imagination than in reality. Ferriss argues that waiting until old age to retire is a deeply flawed strategy. By the time most people retire, they're often too old or unhealthy to truly enjoy life. Instead of saving everything for the end, he suggests taking mini-retirements throughout life. This could mean taking a few months off every few years to travel, pursue hobbies, or work on passion projects. He gives examples of people who took mini-retirements in their 30s and 40s, exploring new interests and returning to work more energised and fulfilled. Rather than waiting until the last years of life to have fun, mini-retirements integrate freedom into every stage of life. Most people focus on absolute income, the total amount of money they earn. But Ferriss argues that relative income, the amount of money earned per hour worked, is a better measure of freedom. He shares the example of two people. One earns $200,000 per year but works 80-hour weeks, meaning their hourly wage is relatively low. The other earns $40,000 per year but only works 10 hours per week, giving them a much higher relative income per hour worked. Which person has more freedom? This idea forces people to rethink wealth, not just in terms of money, but in terms of time and effort. Ferriss believes that most people consume far too much unnecessary information. Endless news articles, emails, social media and notifications. Without realising it drains time and focus. To counter this, he recommends a low-information diet, which includes cutting out news that isn't directly relevant to your life. Checking emails once or twice a day instead of constantly. Ignoring details that don't impact major decisions. This reduces mental clutter and frees up time for what actually matters. The biggest takeaway from the 4-hour work week is that true wealth isn't about working more, but about designing a life where you have both financial and time freedom. Instead of following the traditional path of endless work, Ferriss suggests eliminating what doesn't matter, automating income, and designing a system that supports the life you actually want. The question is, are you willing to challenge everything you've been taught about work, or will you keep waiting for retirement? Well, that's it for today. Thanks for joining me, and if you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and let me know what you think about this book. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll see you next time.